The Philadelphia Phillies have been one of baseball's hottest teams over the past 3 seasons ever since their insane wildcard run to the 2022 World Series. Even though they lost to the Astros, it's clear a championship window has been open for the Phils ever since. With dominating players like Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler, along with the emergence of young assets such as Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez, the Phillies are currently one of the league's powerhouses of talent. But diminishing returns since that World Series and a litany of free agents after this year have certainly raised questions, maybe even some doubts. Is the Phillies window still wide open? Today we will discuss how long this window could remain open, as well as the factors that may be causing it to close sooner than anyone could have imagined. Since the 2022 World Series, the Phillies had expectations to win it all in 2023 and 24. However, going into this offseason after a brutal NLDS loss to the Mets, there have been many questions about the offense and bullpen. Concerns about their current manager Rob Thompson's lineup construction and bullpen decisions have been loud as well. Adding Jesus Luzardo along with Max Kepler has not been the cure-all Dombrowski thought it would be. And before getting Joan Duran and Harrison Bader at the deadline, many fans were already hitting the panic button. But how did we get here? How could the window already appear smaller, only 2 years removed from nearly taking down the Astros? In order to answer this, let's take a deep dive into the Phillies' path to becoming the contenders they are today. After 2012, the Phils were really not considered a championship contender by anyone. The 2018 season inched them closer to finishing at 500 for the first time since 2012, but they desperately needed star power. A lackluster offense and shaky at best bullpen did not make them a real threat even with Aaron Nola's lights-out performance that year. But going into 2019, GM Matt Klentak and President Andy MacPhail made the largest splash signing that would form the bedrock of the Phillies offense that we know today. Signing for a record 13-year, $330 million at the time, Bryce Harper would eventually become a cornerstone for the franchise. This move, along with acquiring Marlins catcher JT Realmuto, plus free agents Andrew McCutchen and David Robertson, the Phillies look poised to break their 7-year playoff drought with a total of $400 million spent. Going into September, they were in position to make the postseason at 72-65. But things unfortunately wouldn't go their way, as they would lose 9 of the last 12 games of the season. Although they would finally finish at 500, the team underperformed in a number of areas, including Harper the first half of the year. The pitching was very inconsistent, and McCutchen tore his ACL 60 games into the year after starting off as their go-to leadoff hitter. All of this made it tough to compete in the NL East, which was showcased by the 97-win Braves and the eventual World Series champion Washington Nationals. Clearly, there was more work that needed to be done in order to get them back to playing October baseball. Luckily, going into 2020, the Phils would find their ace. Zach Wheeler signed to a 5-year, $118 million deal, which in hindsight was beyond a steal, with him becoming a top ace in baseball. They would replace manager Gabe Kapler's sunglasses with Joe Girardi, attempt to bolster the bullpen, and add shortstop Didi Gregorius to replace Cesar Hernandez, thus shuffling Gene Segura to second. 2020 was obviously a great postseason opportunity for most teams with the COVID-shortened season, along with the 16-team expanded playoff format. The Phillies had a prime chance to get a wild card spot, only needing 2 wins in their last 8 games. However, a third consecutive September collapse would ensue as they went 1-7 to end the season, again missing the playoffs, finishing 28-32. What was the issue though? Well, a 7.06 bullpen ERA was the second worst in MLB history. In only 60 games, the pen racked up a negative 2.2 WAR and would finish contributing 22 of the 32 losses the Phillies had that year. The defense was a huge problem as well, ranking bottom of the league with negative 32 defensive runs saved. The offense went quiet, and overall with the shortened season, the Phils were not able to overcome the slump that ultimately kept them only 1 game shy of the playoffs. These disappointing finishes after so much payroll investment would necessitate change in the front office as well. Frustrated owner John Middleton began with the removal of Andy MacPhail 1 year before his contract was set to expire. He would be replaced by Dave Dombrowski as president of baseball operations, who was seen as a more aggressive win-now executive, which starkly contrasted MacPhail's conservative approach. MacPhail's departure was met with positivity by the fan base and seen as a shift from the lack of urgency and vision that had plagued the front office for years. And to be honest, not the best name to inspire success either. Sam Fulb was hired as the new GM as well to try and right the ship. The 2021 offseason plan, now led by Dombrowski, was mainly to maximize the competitiveness of the roster without a complete rebuild. They focused on retaining top prospects while also re-signing pieces of their core, extending Real Muto and Didi. The bullpen was obviously a huge focus after 2020. Jose Alvarado was acquired from the Rays along with signing Sam Coonrod and Archie Bradley. Matt Moore and Chase Anderson would attempt to bolster the starting rotation, with both signing on one-year deals. That had to have helped, right?
Wrong!
Unfortunately, the 2021 season's results were mixed. The Phils started out the first half 44-44, but remained in the race for the NL East. Post All-Star break, they had a 38-36 record showing improvement, but another September slump would keep them out of the postseason yet again, finishing 13-16. This was becoming a real problem, especially with Bryce Harper winning the MVP that year, with an insane run even after missing 21 games due to a fastball to the face. Zach Wheeler also had a Cy Young caliber season, but the bullpen still absolutely stunk. While certainly better than 2020, the bullpen blew 34 saves, tying an MLB record. Girardi, in only his second year, was in the hot seat from his bullpen usage and in-game decision-making. He apparently didn't want to adapt to the new 3-batter minimum rule that had come into effect that year. Not to mention, some of these relievers were just not solid enough to face 3 batters anyway. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And so it was back to the drawing board yet again going into the 2022 offseason. But there were clearly some bright spots with Harper, Wheeler, and even Hoskins putting up for the Phils. Either way, 15 players were free agents, including Hector Neris, Andrew McCutchen, Travis Jankowski, and Brad Miller. Only 3 of the 15 would be re-signed, including controversial Odubel Herrera, who would be replaced by the end of the year. The pitching did get better, signing Eflin to a $5.7 million deal with an option for 2023. They also acquired relievers like Brad Hand and Juris Familia. But the real key moves were obtaining Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. Both would become key pieces in 2022, leading to the Phillies' first postseason appearance since 2011. So 2022 was finally the year, although it definitely didn't seem that way at times. A key moment happened on April 11th that could have spelt disaster only 4 games into the year. The opponent was the division rival Mets, who took the early lead in the game after Alec Bohm committed 2 throwing errors over the first 2 innings. Bohm was booed continuously.
And Bohm sails that throw over the head of Rhys Hoskins. That'll be his second error of the game.
After making a clean play on a ground ball for the second out in the second, fans finally cheered loudly, but obviously sarcastically.
Oh, the crowd showing their appreciation for him to make the play.
Cameras then caught Bohm saying, "I hate this place," to Didi Gregorius. Within minutes, it went viral on social media. The Phillies would go on to win the game after Bohm sparked a 5-run rally in the 8th with a leadoff walk that forced a pitching change. But after the game, Bohm was immediately asked about what he had said.
Emotions got the best of me, I said it. And do I mean it? No.
He owned up to it, saying that emotions got the best of him. The next day, fans greeted Bohm with a standing ovation. Everything was good. Bohm messed up, admitted to it, but also went on to help spark a large comeback that was actually held down by the bullpen. With this moment, even so early in the year, it may have been the earliest sign that things were about to change significantly. Things wouldn't be that easy immediately, though. The team remained inconsistent through April and had a bad May, ending the month at 21-29. To make things worse, Harper suffered a small tear to his UCL on a throw home. Luckily, the DH was implemented in the NL that year. Harper experienced a lot of pain during the 22 season, although it certainly didn't seem like it mattered. Another huge move would also drastically impact that season and seemingly the trajectory of the entire franchise. After 2 months of struggling and already being 12.5 games back in the East, Girardi was relieved of his managerial duties and replaced by assistant Rob Thompson. And just like that in June, the team finally started to really click. Bryson Stott emerged, hitting his first and second homers in the majors with the second second one being a walk-off. They would win 14 of the first 16 games Thompson managed. With him at the helm, Bohm and Stott were featured more in the lineup. And by the All-Star break, the Phillies were 49-43. By September, they were 73-58. As usual, a September skid not to remember happened, and they found themselves needing to win 3 games going into October. On October 3rd, they shut out the Astros 3-0 to secure their first postseason berth since 2011. No one had any idea how far this run would go. First stop was St. Louis. Cardinals fans, viewer discretion is certainly advised. This series, mainly Game 1, actually broke the Cards, and they have not recovered from it since. The Phils were shut out through 8 innings, and things were looking bleak. But a hit parade ensued in the 9th with some bad defense from Goldie and Arenado as the Phillies scored 6 to steal Game 1. They shut out the Cards the next day to advance to the NLDS against the reigning champion Braves. I would talk about this series, but this one homer really sums it up.
Fastball hit to left. It is long gone.
Was not close. They would easily advance to take on the Padres, which can also be summed up in one hit.
Hits one in the air, left center field. Back it goes. Harper, the swing of his life.
Again, just not really close. And just like that, a team that had constantly underperformed and been scrutinized made an improbable run to their first World Series appearance since 2009. Unfortunately, it happened to be against the perennial AL contender Astros. The Phillies had a real shot though. Coming back to the bank, they would take a 2-1 lead in the series, but after getting no hit the next day in Game 4, it just seemed like the magic had worn off, especially to end a wild Game 5. The Astros would take the series in Game 6 back in Houston, but it was clear the Phillies were a team to be feared, officially putting the league on notice. Going into the offseason, Dombrowski doubled down on the progress from 22 and made a splash signing, securing Trey Turner to an 11-year deal. Craig Kimbrell was also added as the team's closer for the 23 campaign, who would actually close the All-Star game that year. Matt Strahm was also added along with Taijuan Walker to bolster the pitching with departures of Eflin and Syndergaard. Fan favorite Gene Segura, aka Jimmy Siggs, would also depart for Miami. Expectations were higher than ever, but some key injuries did occur going into the 23 season, with Ranger Suarez's injury during the WBC and Rhys Hoskins tearing his ACL in spring training, ending his year before it even began. With these injuries, opening day lines even had the Phillies as the 9th overall favorite to win the 23 World Series going into the season at plus 1,800 odds. Behind the Cardinals and the Blue Jays? What? Either way, the Phillies started off slow on the road, getting swept in their first series against the Rangers. A bad series in the Bronx left them at 1-5 to start before their home opener. The struggles on the road would unfortunately be a theme for the year, with the season record of 41-40 in away games. They turned it around to produce a 15-14 record to finish April, but the struggles came back in May, even with Harper returning in record time after his Tommy John surgery. Multiple losing streaks plagued the team going into June, and a sweep by the Mets seemed to be rock bottom. But they would finally respond by going on a 6-game win streak, sweeping the Tigers with 2 walk-off wins during that streak. Another 6-game win streak, along with another 4, helped them finish the month with an 18-8 record and 43-38 overall. Cody Clemens, Trey Turner, and Bryson Stott all got hot to help propel the Phils forward after their rocky start. The Phillies would not have a losing month for the rest of the season, although they were never able to claim first place in the East due to the 104-win Braves. They took second from Miami on July 31st in the first game of a 3-game set against the Marlins, winning 4-2. A day later, they acquired Michael Lorenzen at the trade deadline, who would go on to throw a no-hitter in his second start in Philly. They took the series in Miami and never relinquished second the rest of the way. Finishing as the top-seeded wildcard team, their first opponent in the 23 postseason just so happened to be the Marlins. I'd talk more about this series, but it wasn't even close. Miami only scored 2 runs in 2 games, ending their season in an embarrassing fashion. Next up was the rematch of the 2 NL East powerhouses. The series seemed close in the beginning, although the Phils blanked the Braves to steal Game 1 in Atlanta. Game 2 was highlighted by the Bryce Harper running error to end the game. Orlando Arcia mocked Bryce post-game, and the rest is history. The series went back to Philly, and Bryce Harper got his revenge twice with some epic stare downs. The 104-win Braves were sent packing, only scoring 8 runs in 4 games. Spencer Strider lost both of his starts with only 1 run of support in his 2 games. The Phillies were going back to the NLCS to face the Diamondbacks, who had done the improbable to get there, sweeping the 100-win Dodgers. The Phillies were no longer the underdogs and seemed to be headed back to the World Series after they smoked the D-backs, scoring 10 runs in the second game to go up 2-0 in the series. But then the series headed to Arizona. The bullpen, mainly Craig Kimbrell, absolutely collapsed. He allowed the walk-off in Game 3 with no command whatsoever. Demoted to the setup man role in Game 4, he couldn't hold much of anything, and Alvarado gave up the lead, attempting to clean up Kimbrell's mess. Yikes. A Wheeler Game 5 start allowed the Phils to go back up 3-2 and take it back to the bank to try and close it out in Game 6. But Aaron Nola wasn't sharp, and Merrill Kelly was, taking it to Game 7. At this point, the momentum had shifted entirely, but the Phils would come back in Game 7 after Arizona got the early lead thanks to Bohm and Stott. However, the largest opportunity was squandered by Rojas, striking out with the bases loaded in the 4th. Corbin Carroll tied the game, and Ranger Suarez could not finish the 5th. The D-backs took the lead from there and never gave it up. The Philly bats went quiet, and Arizona was off to the World Series. Absolute heartbreak. With limited financial flexibility going into the 2024 season, Dombrowski didn't make many moves. They had to re-sign Nola, leaving limited options for players while being so close to the luxury tax. They exceeded the limit anyway at $246 million, but with limited additions still. Whit Merrifield, Colby Allard, and Spencer Turnbull were added with little excitement. Rhys Hoskins went to the Brewers, and Lorenzen went to the reigning champion Rangers. But hey, at least Kimbrell was gone and off to Baltimore. Did Dombrowski do enough, though? Leave a comment below on your thoughts. Regardless of last year's gut check, the Phils started off 24 as the hottest team in the league after matching a franchise record hot streak going 28-6 from April 8th to May 24th. Over that span, they scored an average of 5.7 runs per game and only allowed 3.3. The run differential from just those games alone was plus 101. On May 31st, they were the first team to get to 40 wins and a heavy favorite to win the World Series. They were firing on all cylinders, to say the least. They went into the All-Star break holding the best record in the league with 62 wins and 34 losses. A record 8 Phillies were All-Stars, including Turner, Harper, Wheeler, Bohm, Stott, Suarez, Strahm, and now starter Christopher Sanchez. Expectations were sky high, but the team was just not the same after the break. By the end of July, they were 3-9 since the All-Star break. Luckily, some reinforcements were on the way, with JT Realmuto coming back to the lineup on July 20th after knee surgery a month prior. And at the deadline, they brought in Carlos Estevez from the Angels to try and lock down the bullpen, along with Austin Hayes from the Orioles to play left. But they also dealt away some bullpen options that may have foreshadowed what was to come. Whit Merrifield was also mercifully DFA'd after batting .199 in 174 plate appearances. $8 million for him was truly wild. August didn't start out great, and losses piled up, including a literal walk-off loss. The team seemed to be unraveling, missing the magic that they had demonstrated to start the year, especially offensively. A lack of a consistent 5th starter was also a huge problem, with Taijuan Walker struggling all year. Fortunately, they would take a key series against the Braves, winning 3 out of 4 to have a great shot at securing the East going into September with a 7-game lead. They clinched the NL East on September 23rd with a win over the Cubs at home to mark their first NL East title since 2011, ending a 13-year drought. But to finish the year, they would lose 8 of their last 13, going pretty cold into their bye as the 2 seed. Their opponent in the divisional round would wind up being the Mets, who seemed to be a team of destiny, fueled by a large purple deity. The series was as rough as it can get, although it certainly started off with a bang from the first pitch. Zach Wheeler was locked in with 9 strikeouts over 7 shutout innings. But the bullpen collapsed, giving up 5 runs in the 8th to drop Game 1 6-2. Game 2 was an instant classic, although it looked bleak with the Mets scoring 3 unanswered runs going into the bottom of the 6th. Harper and Castellanos responded in kind with back-to-back homers to tie it. The Mets regained the lead in the 7th, but birthday boy Bryson Stott drove in 2 and scored on an infield muff by Vientos to make it 6-4 going into the 9th. Vientos would make up for it in spades, but Castellanos had seen enough.
Into left field, down the line, and the Phillies have Series.
A walk-off single ended an absolute thriller that saw 3 lead changes in the last 1.5 innings. But this would be the last time the Phillies got a chance to play at home in 24. Games 3 and 4 were a mess offensively. Questionable lineup decisions were a hot talking point, especially around ice-cold Alec Bohm batting 5th and no Bryson Stott in the lineup. He would only get 1 plate appearance in Game 3 after his electric performance in Game 2. This made no sense. Same deal in Game 4 with Bohm 5th and Stott batting 7th. I get Quintana is a lefty, but sheesh. Game 4 hung in the balance so many times before Lindor took over to send the Mets to the NLCS. The bullpen absolutely blew it. 3 blown saves in 4 games. Strahm and Hoffman looking completely uncompetitive, to put it nicely. And besides Harper, Castellanos, and Stott, the offense was non-existent. Real Muto didn't have a single hit in 4 games. Bohm and Marsh only had 1 each. They were punched in the mouth 2 years in a row by teams that they probably viewed as inferiors. Many questions remain with no answers. How will the Phillies respond? Can they capitalize on possibly the last opportunity they have with this core? A quiet offseason along with streaky results this year has definitely put a damper on fans' expectations. Offseason addition Max Kepler said he wants out, but with signing Bader, at least the Phillies have a real center fielder, with Marsh struggling. There are a lot of key pieces heading to free agency in 2026 too. Schwarber declined the Phillies' initial offer. JT Realmuto could be gone. Ranger Suarez as well. With the Mets spending more money than some countries' GDP, competition is heating up more than ever in the NL East. Even more concerning was Rob Thompson's managing in the NLDS and a number of incidents such as Phil Cuzzy's botched game against the Giants. Fans have taken notice and want more fire from Topper. Obviously, this team still has its insanely good core of players, especially starting pitching. Jesus Luzardo can hopefully get right to help this already dominant rotation. Christopher Sanchez has been a legit Cy Young contender. Nola will be back soon, but the bullpen has fully regressed, and unbelievably, the Phillies were without an official closer yet again until signing Duran at the deadline. 9 different Phillies have a save this year, with no one having more than 8 saves. Duran should be a massive help. One thing that we can say with certainty is that Bryce Harper will continue to mash if he stays healthy. They possess so much postseason experience now, but the expectations are firmly World Series or bust. With the clock seemingly ticking away faster than ever, how will they respond? If another postseason provides diminishing returns, could this championship window officially close? Thanks, y'all. This has been Baseball Casual. Huge thanks to everyone who subscribed, liked, and commented so far. I really appreciate the support. I was really blown away by the love the Mets video got and excited to get back on track with more regular uploads. Thanks again for watching. If you liked the video, drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for future content.